So thank you. Excited to be one of the last presentations. I know we're all pretty tired, so bear with me here. And I know actually a lot of the discussion points that I'll have here will be, somewhat redundant to some of the things that you've heard already, but it's always good to get new perspective and hear some kind of different approaches to things. So I'm Marco Chmura. I'm a Director of Quality and Transformation at Morningstar. Morningstar is an independent investment research company. We help investors reach their financial goals. We've been around since the mid-'80s. We were based out of Chicago, have about 6,000 employees, and I am on the quality team there. I wanted to start with why automation, some of the reasons behind why we're doing this. And what you'll notice actually up here is some of the reasons are actually very similar to why we started quality. Wanted to expand and grow our business. There's a lot going on in the investment market, such as the move from active to passive investments, a lot of regulations coming out, a lot of need to expand into new universes. Fund has been our bread and butter. Did a lot of good star rating research, as you might have seen, but now we're doing a lot more with equities, indexes, ETFs, and whatnot, so growth. Very inefficient methods for handling our increasing volume. We were started in the mid-'80s, but I still sometimes refer to us as a startup because we have a very startup mentality to a lot of our businesses. We've acquired a lot of different companies over the years, different systems, and we've maintained them in isolation, so that leads to a lot of manual and repetitive processes that maybe aren't the most efficient. Which also leads to quality issues, a lot of transition within our company. We're very innovative and we're very open to movement within the company, so a lot of change and a lot of opportunity for different processes that can lead to quality issues. I like this one, desire to lead versus catch up. That's really a common approach that you'll hear sometimes within transformation. In some ways, we're definitely not leading. One of our challenges right now is we're doing a lot of migration to the cloud. Both our software, we deliver a lot of our data and research through our software products, but also within our data itself. We have a lot of old school XML structures for storing our data, and we're doing a lot to move it to the cloud. And that's where I would say we're more catching up. But in some areas, we want to be leaders. And I think that some of the technologies that we've already made a lot of progress on, like some other companies that have been here, have really been an example of us desiring to lead versus just kind of staying with the pack. And finally, but very important, improve the employee experience. We've received, obviously, a lot of feedback over the years. We actually did a lot of assessment before we moved into automation, and we started with HR, right? HR is a really good group to understand the employee experience and maybe some of the opportunities to help change the environment at Morningstar and encourage better talent to come there. And a lot of it had to do with numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, our inability to really remove some of the non-value-added work that we know a lot of us want to help teams focus on the more proactive things. And again, when I say that this was an approach that we wanted to take to automation, it was really also the approach that we wanted to take for our quality program to begin with. A lot of the reasons that we started our quality program. And we base our quality program off of 4 pillars. These things might sound very familiar, of course, but it's really the approach that we take to all of the different quality initiatives that we start at Morningstar. We are an internally homegrown team. We are a global company, so I have directors of quality in our London, Mumbai, China, and other offices, so we're helping stand up the business globally. And we really teach it in a way that I would say is somewhat akin to treating a patient at a doctor's office, which you might have heard that reference sometimes when hearing about lean. We center our program around the voice of the client, so we're very customer focused. We very much teach the company how to put the customer needs first, so our whole program centers around that. And when you think of measurements, it's really our ability to, if you akin it to that doctor's office visit, it's our ability to kind of, what's the first thing that happens? They take your vitals. So before we start any kind of initiative, we really want to have a good understanding of the heartbeat behind what's going on. So we really want to take this approach to adopting new technologies as well. So what I have here on the left is really some of the dashboards, the KPIs, and just the methods that we took when looking at where to apply continuous improvement, where to apply quality when we started our program. So whenever somebody adopts lean and thinks about, or another framework for continuous improvement and thinks about how do we get some traction with this, you really have to have a good understanding of where is your data quality currently, where is your quality currently? Where do you have issues? Where are you going to make maybe the biggest initial spark? And be able to identify a team that you can set the example with and then grow your business or your quality program from there. So that's really how we were able to stand up some of our previous lean efforts. And we really took a simple approach to how we would look at RPA opportunity as well. This is a very simple dashboard, obviously, but looking across our different functional units, just putting some criteria behind what kind of impact can we make. So right when we looked at RPA specifically, we thought about within our different areas, what kind of ownership are we going to be able to have there? I'll get into a little bit about the own part of our quality program, but really having the teams champion our efforts has been a big reason we've been able to not have a super intense quality team or a outside consultant come in and help us. It's because we really instill these behaviors amongst the teams. But where are we going to struggle to get that kind of ownership with RPA right off the bat? Where's the potential, of course? Just using kind of a simple red, yellow, green scale. We go into much more detail when we work with these teams, but this was just a high-level dashboard to help us understand. And then where are you going to get that leader support? And you can evolve, obviously, your metrics as you go. Within our data collection practice and within our lean business, we've done a lot with audit and benchmarking. So a lot of evaluating other companies and really standing up our data quality against those. When we get into building the program, we really look, and this is a very familiar structure to you all, we practice lean, so we apply the DMAIC framework to a lot of our process improvement projects. We really like to look at the different frameworks that we build as a toolkit, though, for the company. We really break DMAIC down into, of course, the different deliverables and tools that come into each stage, and teach the teams how, maybe not necessarily to do a full-blown process improvement project, but to identify different tools that you can use that can help stand up some of your, or can help solve some of your existing challenges and can really help you kind of think fluidly and be flexible with how you apply lean. I didn't really get into a lot of the other frameworks that we've helped build, but I do want to talk about that for a minute because I have heard a lot about that over the last couple of days. And even when we moved to Agile and started helping our teams adopt an Agile approach to software development, we really thought about how these teams could have a consistent framework for how Morningstar is Agile. So we had a Scrum Alliance trainer come in and teach us Scrum, but then we really thought about what are the tools that go into Agile? What are the different approaches some teams can take? If it's a core software development team, they're going to become very Agile focused, but some teams might just need different pieces of it. We've also built frameworks for end-to-end project management, and now we're starting to get into how can we build some frameworks around how we adopt some of these new tools. A lot of these frameworks that we build tie together. We're also building frameworks about how we can apply design thinking to some of our more strategic approaches to changing the way that we're doing business, to really getting teams to move up a level beyond lean and start to get more into that transformation space. When we build a framework around RPA, and we view RPA, AI, chatbots, any kind of new technology that comes out as really a solution to our team's problems. So as we teach continuous improvement, we're always thinking of, what are some of the new tools that are out there for teams to adopt. But some of these tools also need a framework in themselves. And we use lean thinking to first evaluate our vendors. And we do a lot of vendor evaluation. We have a procurement team, but they're very tied up with some other areas of the business. So when we have independent teams at Morningstar doing vendor evaluations, that in itself can be inconsistent. So we thought about what are some of the criteria that we want. And we even pulled out some of our internal developers to think about what types of tools are out there. We evaluated UiPath, we took a look at Automation Anywhere, we took a look at Blue Prism. There were a lot of vendors out there at the time. We just came up with some basic criteria for when we're looking at automation vendors, what are some of the things we want to see. We ended up going with UiPath, and we've been very happy with them because they have a very, they had a very good community version that our developers were able to download and try out themselves. They had very good online tutorial videos that our internal, some business champions we identified, as well as really analytics developers. We weren't working with some of our engineers or software developers who were very busy. We were more looking at kind of middle tier technology. some people who had some experience with Python maybe, and a little bit of coding background, but nothing too intense. And we let them do the evaluation, just to understand if we even needed to go into a more in-depth technical level. But they came back and said, you know, we really liked the support, we really liked the way that the coding worked in there, they were able to do things quickly. So we did a pilot with UiPath, and we did that by similar ways that you were kind of evaluating when we kind of take a look at teams and thought about where could we do this. So we started within our own group and started using bots to complete our audits. We do a lot of audit and benchmarking work, like I said, and there's a lot of manual steps that go into that. A lot of times when you do auditing, it's preparing the files and collecting the data that takes a lot of time. So we thought, oh, that's a great use case right there, let's test with that. And we were able to code a pretty good process pretty quickly and then really kick it off from there. So how can we build a framework around RPA? Well, you see, we built kind of a simple 4-stage framework. I was able to see MasterCard talk in this room yesterday. They built kind of a similar nice approach to how they roll out RPA within their company. Really step one is where I think you can go back to our continuous improvement mindset and the way that we work in that we're always trying to use domain tools to help us identify solutions to our challenging processes. So teams have familiarity doing value stream mapping. They have familiarity thinking about their process in a way that there are many different approaches that we can take. When it comes to automation, we work with some of the similar tools that you all work with, so Workday, Salesforce. We have our data collection suite of tools, but we're also going in and out of SQL, SharePoint. You know, a lot of the similar applications that, in a lot of ways, we had to, you know, build a little bit of check with those teams that own those software to see if there's a better automation opportunity out there. If technology is coming up with something better for Salesforce, and they're going to buy some new plugin, then maybe we don't need to apply RPA. So you want to be very thorough in building your teams and evaluating your processes. So having a good identification process and a lot of materials on our internal wiki that we could share with the teams, as well as building a request framework within our company, added a lot of stability up front. And really helped teams to think through what they were giving us. And also we put a lot of criteria around those requests. And we use Jira to track our requests, and that's very important too, because you know, I think whether it comes to tracking lean projects or comes to tracking any kind of transformation initiatives, anything you can do to have some kind of good documentation and request mechanism within your company will add a little bit more ability to handle increasing workloads as you move forward. So Jira has been really helpful in that regard. I'll talk a little bit more about SOP documentation, but because we were already doing a lot of good standard operating procedure work and you know, building lean into that approach, we were very quick and easy to tailor a lot of those SOPs towards the RPA process. So in a lot of instances, the processes are written obviously for a human to understand, but taking a standard operating procedure that's been documented for a human and tailoring it towards what the developer is going to need to read and understand to add it to the logic is not really all that challenging when you have an SOP process in place. It can be a little bit more challenging when you're starting from scratch, but as long as you have kind of a good format for doing that, teams can pick up pretty quickly. You might need to do a little bit of hands-on support initially, but if you can identify champions within your groups and have them become champions of SOPs, and I'll talk about some of the ways to sustain those, you can be much more effective as well. Building an RPA Dev Center of Excellence. The MasterCard team also talked about this as well, but it's a little bit hard to decide whether or not you're going to do centralized development or you're going to maybe do a quote-unquote hub-and-spoke model. So we experimented with both, and we settled on doing centralized developers so that we could intake processes from the company and build consistency within our approach to building out the bots. A lot of consistency is necessary because it's tough when multiple different developers are working on the same application and coming up with different approaches. You really lose a lot of best practice expertise. When you have centralized developers that can really become familiar with how RPA will work with Workday, how RPA is going to touch Salesforce and Oracle, and how maybe RPA can help you in different areas, you really build a lot of consistency and expertise there. The licensing model. Every developer needs its own license, so you know, depending on where your costs are at, you're going to be much more effective if you use a fully dedicated developer as opposed to maybe anyone who's going to quote unquote devote 50% of their time and maybe share a license with somebody else, cover your ears, and then do kind of some piecemeal development. It can be very difficult to work with, and we found that out pretty quickly. So we do centralized development. It also allows us to then take our agile principles and apply them to the way that we develop. So our developer COE, which are actually located in our Shenzhen and Mumbai offices, we don't do any development here in the States, which might be a little bit different. It's just more cost effective for us, but those are our teams, and we've been working with them for years. They've done a lot to build out Tableau dashboards in the past. We built our own business intelligence tool. They become very familiar with collecting data and building nice visual versions of it. They were very quick to pick up UiPath's framework, and they love it, and they're working really well with it. So we have 10 full-time developers that are operating in an agile way, and constantly also using continuous improvement to the way that we develop and roll out code. You know, we're starting to keep better track about how long some of the cycle time is, as well as post-release bugs and issues, which do happen. So the agile process really can help you fold that kind of work back into your workflow. It can really help you be smart about the way that you're collecting the feedback from your retrospectives and thinking about how to build smarter going forward. So all of this has really helped us stand up the RPA program. Similarly, we wanted to build a framework around chatbots. We identified chat as a really good opportunity for us just to deliver some of our internal information to our internal teams faster. So you'll see here that some of our use cases that we're currently working with are all internal facing, and I'm starting to hear that that's pretty common amongst a lot of the groups that are attending and a lot of the businesses that are moving into this space now beyond maybe some of our more advanced players. There's a reason that we haven't moved externally yet, because number one, I think we're still learning how our internal teams are adopting chat. The internal chats that we're using here are very structured search chatbots. What that means is it's kind of a menu that you navigate through and get your answer as opposed to have a conversation with it. Before we move anything external facing onto our products that can navigate our software and talk to our clients, we're going to kind of wait for the technology to advance. And that's like waiting weekly. We're not talking about years here. We're really talking about kind of keeping an eye on the vendors and making sure that we're, have an opportunity to lead and not catch up, but also don't go too fast. As we worked with our internal use cases, we started with Microsoft. They have a very nice chat feature within there. We're a Microsoft 365 client, and it came with chat, so we figured why not use it within our license, and we started experimenting with it. Some of the use cases are very simple here. We take an extraordinarily long time sometimes just to tell a client, and in this case it's level 1 support, but for level 1 support to be able to get an answer to our client about whether or not we cover an investment. So we built a back-end framework for being able to serve that information up in a very easy and consumable way. But how are we going to serve it was more the challenge that the chatbot presented, right? It builds a little bit of excitement within the teams. If your customer experience is being driven by the fact that your support team is constantly in transition, they have a lot of different tools and websites and different knowledge bases that they go to collect their information, serving it up in a nice kind of fun to use consistent format we found is a great way for our team to kind of rally behind getting quick answers to our clients and even giving us more use cases to build into the chatbot. So we've expanded to about 10 use cases now. We started with one only 6 months ago. We're now able to quickly tell if a portfolio is suppressed so that a client shouldn't be able to see it. This is the type of stuff that would historically take us almost a week to get an answer, when now we can get it right to the client right away. You're not supposed to see that portfolio, or that portfolio will be released in a certain amount of time. So these types of simple, low-hanging fruit that just for years we've let dangle and consistently create challenges for our clients, we can now quickly serve up answers and again, build some excitement around it while testing a new technology. We've advanced to dialogue flow now internally. That's the Google product. Our developers told us that they were able to start experimenting with it, and they found that to be even easier to work with than Microsoft. And also putting it in a web-based version was a little bit easier, which allows for easier access in some of our global locations and for some of our global support teams. So we haven't really evolved too much internally yet beyond Microsoft and Google. And I would assume that maybe if we ever do move into an external space, I've been hearing a lot of kind of big players that they could help stand up our internal version too. I've heard of some companies using multiple chatbots. So I'll talk a little bit about how we learn from other companies as well, and this conference is a great example, but we're still in that discovery mode and talking to a lot of vendors. And then finally, some of the other teams we're working with, of course, is Ask HR and our IT service desk. Really excitement there. Our Ask HR team fields a ton of repetitive questions. Doing some analysis on just some of their use cases reveals that we have a lot of opportunity there. So, but we've been mostly focused on client support today. Data next gen. So this is an example of where we're really kind of going to the next level. I think when you look at external facing use cases here, we're thinking more maybe the AI version, some of the chatbots that can be more conversational and really register what's happening with the client's total experience. Here is where we're going maybe a step beyond RPA. Within our data collection space, we've really identified a need, as I said in the beginning, to expand a lot of our universe collection. And how can we use some machine learning to help take our data collection to the next space? And how can we build a framework around that as well? So we called it Data Next Gen. And my colleague, Anu George, talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, her keynote speech, if you were able to hear any of that. But we've been able to build a good vision around 100% data automation. So getting all of our data collected and delivered to our clients without any manual touch. A very lofty goal that we're not quite sure what the time horizon is on yet. But we've built some nice guiding principles that help support that vision. Having a deep understanding of our users, cutting edge technology, lean and having process ownership, and then having that, like Anu said, building some tugboats that can kind of help carry the big ship. So we have 5 dedicated squads that are really looking at things like, I'll give you an example, but we do a lot of work to reduce the amount of documents that we need to eventually translate some of the public filing information to our database. So for example, we get 25,000 documents from the Bombay Stock Exchange, and we know we only need 200 of those documents to help satisfy some of our data collection requirements for that exchange. So we have a lot of manual effort to sift through those documents and really identify the key data points that we need. Once those data points are identified, then there's obviously some kind of data input involved. So doing a lot to look at some of the technology that allows us to convert PDFs, taking PDFs and converting them into an HTML structure. But then taking advantage of some of the concepts behind machine learning and being able to put a lot of really those test data sets, right? So we've taken these 25,000 documents and reduced them down to this number. How can a robot maybe understand what the analyst was doing to reduce those documents to those 200? So this goes beyond just straight RPA, having very rule-based. This is unstructured data. This is data that you cannot just say, we're going to code RPA to go find it on this page of the document. This is where we get to a little bit of the next level. And when a team is working on an effort like this, we want to build and isolate a separate framework for them. All of these frameworks have a certain aspect of vendor research associated with them too. So we built a framework around vendor evaluation. We even worked with our procurement team to kind of understand how they go through it. Morningstar is a very innovative company. We're also very kind of P&L focused, so a lot of things happen in pockets. We're our internal quality team. We try to bring things together, but we can only do so much. So building frameworks for how teams should go about doing these things is really a good way to help bring some stability and consistency, as well as make things stick for a while. We often move on. As you can see, as we've gotten on these efforts, we might have moved a little bit away from lean, but our lean framework still exists. If we don't have the opportunity to support a team with a new initiative, we have plenty of champions that we can connect them with, and we also have a framework that they can at least adopt some of the principles and tools. So as I move on into ownership, we build quality into our team's DNA. So we are a facilitation team. We are facilitating teams adopting lean, adopting agile, adopting RPA if that's a solution that maybe lean has led them to. We look at these, again, we look at these tools as solutions to our customer problems. So it's all about building it into the team's workflow, and it's not about, hey, you got to adopt RPA. It's about, hey, what's going on with your customer challenges? And now that we have some new, exciting solutions that are maturing, how can we apply these to those challenges? In some cases, it's digging up some old process maps. In other cases, it's maybe starting a new effort. But given that we have this familiarity with analyzing our processes and thinking about them from a customer perspective, with how can we drive towards increasing our quality KPIs, it can become very much part of the similar way of working that we've always had. So it's really helped stand up this kind of new technology that's coming to change the world by making it part of our kind of ownership process. As you can see at the bottom, process owners drive solutioning. So again, we're not forcing any of these solutions on anybody, and I don't think the company is, nor any external environment. It's more about having the process owners identify what's going to help them solve some of these common client challenges. And we're there to encourage them, of course. We're there to help kind of apply the consistency, coach. Whenever a framework is rolled out, we think about how to train, how to communicate. These are all key aspects usually of a lean project as well, so we really kind of bring everything full circle to our quality program. I want to talk about sustainment a little bit. How do we sustain lean? Well, we have a process certification program. I think I saw something similar up on the dashboard for HP, which is where I'm going with this, is that if we have a process certification program, which has helped us, at the end of a lean project, we always have a team document the new standard way of working, right? It might not be as step-by-step as some of the traditional SOPs that you've seen, but it's, even if it's a sales team or a marketing team or someone that's not so used to step-by-step documentation, we still help them build the future state and make sure that it's documented. And we do that by having a template for how teams document things. Think about the continuous improvement aspect of it. What's the goal? What is the background of this process? And of course, what are the key steps? And then as they work and monitor their performance and continue to improve the SOP, helping them see it get to additional levels at the company so we can celebrate the fact that some of these SOPs have reached a great level of stability. Real quick, what gets things to the next level is meeting your customer-facing goals on a consistent basis. You can see the number of level 3 processes we have is extremely low, and there's a reason for that, because that is like self-sustainment. That is almost fully automated with 0 quality issues. It's a very high standard that we try to put things towards. If you build a certification program around your RPA processes, you can also see a similar level of evolution, as well as kind of tying some of the RPA solutions back to a lean SOP. So these tools can help feed your continuous improvement program. We also do process health checks. By having processes certified and documented with a goal, we're able to sometimes create a watch list. And we have the teams on these things. These are run by the teams themselves. So the teams identify the processes that they have seen as a blip on the customer-facing goals and used it as an opportunity to come to the process health check and talk about what's happening and what they're doing to improve it. Process health checks are a great way to build a community for your process owners, to have them come and collaborate together. And then we can, again, just serve as a facilitator, as a guiding force. But really, we love to see the teams talk about their performance, talk about true root causes, and be able to come to solutions. And then finally, our huddles. We stood up daily huddles. I think huddles have been talked about a lot here. We learned about them from other organizations. Love learning externally. That's where we get a lot of our material, so I'm sure you all feel the same. But when we found huddles, we found them as a great daily way for teams to adopt continuous improvement. Even if they're not the most well-oiled lean machine, they can still bring in some of the aspects of client focus, continuous improvement, dedicated time towards taking a step back and saying, how are we working, not just focusing on individual projects or whatnot. That's an example of our huddle board. This is a team standing around them, focusing on one of their processes. So taking this to some of the newer technologies that we're adopting, and how can we sustain some of the growth that we're getting out of these. So again, continuing to build and maintain excitement. There's a lot of ways you can do this. I've attended quite a few seminars and conferences and things about RPA. I think a great example is to share external information about RPA or about chat or about what companies are doing with your company. We all have a lot of delivery mechanisms to share information, and we don't do enough of that. I really blame my team for that. We don't do enough of sharing some of the good things that RPA is doing, sometimes both internally and of course externally, but do try to create and build and maintain excitement. This is actually an example of a hackathon, which we ran in Mumbai. So run some contests. If you're trying to build up your RPA program and you're so focused on some of the operational logistics of it, and you don't take the time to educate the company, make it real, make it exciting, you're definitely going to have some challenges there. So we're very much trying to have some fun activities. Having a continuous improvement program also helps you grow your pipeline. So we're continuously evaluating our processes for new opportunities. We're also continuously evaluating our vendors. Plug your ears, but you know, and that's another reason why we like to iPad. They had a very nice contracting model where we didn't have to commit to a multi-year contract. But every year we look at all of our vendors and do a good assessment together with the teams that are using the tools too. So again, building a lot of the ownership within our leadership group and within our teams has really helped kind of make this a part of the company. This is company level efforts. This is not quality team efforts, operational excellence efforts. This is, you know, company, customer facing work. Compliance reviews and internal audits on the lower right, you'll see kind of a little bit about our systems and organizational controls, but taking a lot of our good work on documenting the process and our ability to translate a lot of the material that UiPath has given us about running RPA within our infrastructure and making sure that we have good controls around our SOX processes. We are a public company, so there's a lot of challenges that comes with applying RPA within a public company environment. So we're working with our internal audit team to, you heard about how we do benchmarking and auditing of external companies' data. We're doing the same things with ourselves, so coming in and auditing ourselves and making sure that we are compliant with the ways that we're approving users, the ways that we're changing code. If the code touches Oracle, we have to have a mechanism to track the code changes and make sure that they are what the user requested. So there's a lot of operational logistics around that, but we're just being very smart about it and making sure that we're you know, able to sustain this good work without kind of moving to the next shiny new thing without having our controls established. That is it. I know you're probably excited to go see the Verizon folks, but I will remain here to answer any questions that you have, but feel free to exit if you want to go check out that. But if anyone does have any questions, you can raise your hand or come talk to me. Anything? Yes?
Are you tracking your benefit for robotics separately from your process improvement benefit?
Yes. Yes, we are. We have a whole mechanism for tracking hours saved. We also have, the Jira tickets are pretty expansive. We really like teams to think about, do you have a mechanism for doing this manually if the robot fails, thinking about what happens if the bot fails. But we also really like to track how much time, similar to what MasterCard was talking about yesterday, but how much time do you currently put into this process? How frequently do you do it? But then any other quality gains you're going to get out of it. I know that was a discussion yesterday, but we have a whole field around that, and we try to aggregate and consolidate that information. And we create a whole we have a very nice wiki and set of slides that explains the benefits we're getting out of RPA. And it's hours saved and processes implemented and maybe FTE numbers on one side, but on the other side, some of the quality gains that we've gotten. I think we can measure that, not necessarily, the lean project work can help, but we just try to document it within the same tickets as RPA. And things like tickets avoided, hours avoided by the process is something that we're tracking. We're looking at a lot of processes that are new and didn't exist before, so you can't say hours saved. Auditing processes is a great example of that. Processes that go and check work more frequently than it currently is checked. So you almost reduce errors completely.
100% quality.
Yeah, 100% quality. We have 35,000 monthly statements that we send out as part of our investment management group, and we used to spot check QA like 50 of them monthly. So we missed some errors and some issues that would pop up. Now we QA all files on a monthly basis, and there's no manual intervention. So it saved us a ton of time from looking at that subset of 20 to 50 I think they looked at, but we're also now comprehensively covering the whole universe, and we like to just illustrate that right there in the ticket, but it's hard to put a number around that, so we'll just list it out, and when we talk about the benefits of RPA and give our internal presentations and share with teams, we'll definitely highlight the qualitative wins as well as the quantitative ones. Jira helps us do that.
And I'm sorry, just
sure.
You collect that information in Jira?
In Jira, yeah.
So you create fields in Jira that tie to your stories?
We have 2 Jira projects. One is a Jira project to track all the tickets, and a ticket is driven by a process name.
Yeah.
And it's tied to the owner, the developer, the reviewer.
Okay.
It says it has the SOP attached to it, of course.
Yeah.
It goes through those stages that I showed before. And it, and it will also have the field enables them.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just when you say ticket, is that equate, like we use Jira to track user stories, right?
Yes.
So is that the same concept?
So Jira comes with the ability to create different types of tickets.
Yeah.
One of them is called story.
Right.
Another is called issue.
Yeah.
We use the issues.
That's what we're using.
Yeah. So issues. So it's really it's in some ways bastardizing Jira.
Yeah.
Definitely not its original use. We used to have another ticketing management system called QuickBase that we've sunsetted. So now we're using Jira, and it definitely wasn't built to do this, but it's very functional for it. It's great. And it ties, it's the same company, Atlassian, that makes Confluence, which is our wiki.
Which we use as well.
Wiki and Jira tie really well together. We can build wiki pages now that filter Jira tickets out of the RPA database and show nice dashboards and quick, easy access lists of their projects in different stages. So allowing our teams to see this information quickly and easily, it comforts them very fast. Like if we can bring up quick links in meetings and show them their whole list of projects, they start to get less flummoxed by anything bad they're hearing about RPA.
Okay.
And then our other one is an internal admin tracking application where we track users of RPA as well as the bots themselves. So what do the bots have access to? Who approved that access? What developers have access to UiPath? All that kind of stuff we have very well documented within Jira.
And do you have an internal team that helps you configure Jira to do this?
Yes, corporate systems.
Yeah.
We have a corporate systems team.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mind sharing how many processes you guys have?
We are up at about, we're close to 200 processes now. Yeah, we're up.
What's your savings look like?
We are at about 30,000 hours saved.
Okay.
Yeah, which we equate to about almost 15 FTEs.
The 30,000 hours saved though, is that?
And that doesn't include one-time hours actually, or the hours I mentioned before, which would be hours avoided. That's pure hours completed previously. I would say we tracked about another 15,000 hours avoided, but that's a tough number in my opinion.
That's like the QA work that you were talking about?
Yeah, like we think if we QA'd all these documents ourselves, which we wouldn't do, that it would have cost us this many hours. Take that value, take the value of that data point for what you will, but it's still nice to know, right? Like, if we wanted to comprehensively audit 30,000 documents, it would take us 400 hours to do it, a year. So let's track that number too.
What percentage would you say were attended versus unattended bots?
We have 16 attended and 9 unattended. 25 bots right now. Hewlett-Packard, it's like a lot. They dwarfed us. MasterCard is using Automation Anywhere, which is a little different. They have a little different way of tracking it. They were counting bots as processes. We look at bots as licenses that have, 365, 24/7.
It's really tough to use bots as a measure. I always warn people off of that. You really need to look at processes and hours.
Yeah.
Because you can.
And that's our base. That's our base metric.
We have one process that you need 40 bots to hit your peak volumes, but we don't use them all the time.
So
Where are you at?
how do you work through like optimization of that bot right within? Your bot only runs for like Monday, right? It might run for 40 hours.
We have an enterprise license agreement with Automation Anywhere, so